Hello and welcome to another episode of the Saints FC podcast. Oh, that introduction took a hell of a lot of false energy talking about Southampton there. As usual, welcome to the podcast. If you want to email us, you know how to do that. It's saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to get in contact with us on Twitter, it's at saintsfcpodcast. Tell your friends about the show. Give us a review on iTunes, all of that. Anyway, I'm going to introduce the two chaps that are sat to my left first. Then we'll talk about free beer, and then we'll get into the football. So, Tom, he's on my far left.
Hello, everyone.
You'll recognise his voice if you're a regular listener to the Saints FC podcast, Tom Parker. And Matt, who's immediately on my left.
Hello.
And you may recognise his voice if you're a listener to the Southampton Dellivery Podcast. Matt, it's an absolute honour to have you sat here on the sofa as a guest on the Saints FC podcast, all the way from California. Wow.
I think I'm just going to change my whole flight plan. I came for this podcast, not for Saints at West Ham, because we'll get into that later. But yeah, thanks for having me. This is great. I can't. I don't know. I didn't really think this was going to happen. But hey,
it's cross-media pollination. It's amazing.
I think this is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the distance between California and Hackney is pretty vast. But amazing you've made the journey here. I don't know if I can promise a trip out to California anytime soon to come on your podcast, but you know.
Well, if you do, you're welcome.
Yeah.
But also California is, I think, bigger than. I think traveling one end of California to the other, one end to the other, is probably far further than England.
It'd probably take you about London to the US. Would probably take you about as long as US to start of US to California. I'd say maybe.
Do you
guess? Yeah. Well, when I went to Seattle, it does about that.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, moving on from kind of like badly researched geographical stats.
Back of a fact pack geography.
I don't teach history or geography at all.
I have a degree in geography from the University of Southampton, of course, but we didn't do that in our degree. Anyway, we're rambling on. One very important message to tell you is we still have the sponsorship coming from beer52.com. This means if you haven't yet got your free box of beer, firstly, what on earth are you doing? Secondly, good news, you can still get it. So all you have to do is head to beer52.com/saints and you will get a box of 10 beers, delicious craft beers, and they'll deliver it to your door for a price of £5.95. When you do that, you sign up to a subscription service, but you can cancel the subscription service. I've had 2 boxes of beers from Beer 52 now, and I think we were supposed to be drinking them on the podcast, but they were so delicious, I've finished them already.
My fiance drank all of my beers, so thanks for that, Imogen.
Matt, I don't know if the offer's open to American listeners, I'm afraid, but maybe you need to get your UK address and give that a go.
I contemplated having it shipped to the hotel.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. I didn't pull the trigger on it soon enough. It wasn't going to get there while we were here. But I did. I actually thought about it.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want to get your free beer, head to beer52.com/saints. Right. Anyway, I'm going to start this podcast by quizzing you, Matt. So, I mean, you're clearly American, as people will be able to tell from your voice. We've established that you live in California. Like, how on earth and why do you support Southampton?
Well, way back when my son was playing baseball, and I played baseball my entire life growing up, and I actually hated football. And in this story, I may actually refer to it as soccer as a couple of times, just because it's habit. But and so I hated football, and he decided he hated baseball and he wanted to play soccer. So I was like, let's go for it. And we started watching, we started doing all this stuff. And my best friend's an Arsenal fan, so we were watching Arsenal. And after about a year of that, he's playing, I'm learning about it. And I don't know, we just kind of decided, hey, it's probably time to pick a team. My buddy assumed I was going to pick Arsenal. My son did choose Arsenal as his team. I did not. And part of it is I'm a big Houston Astros fan. And to make a long story short, they have a really good farm system, which is like their academy. And so for me, that was really important. And when I started looking at the teams in the Premier League with good academies, I saw Southampton. I saw all the players that had come through there, and at the time I thought, man, that's really good. They come through there, they play a few years, and then they go on. This is so great. They play for England, and now I'm starting to regret that because they're all gone.
But no, it's too late. You can't change now.
No, I'm in, and so that is probably the single biggest contributor.
Yeah.
But also, I'm a teacher. and we are a high school, and we are red and white, and we are the Saints as well.
Oh,
so
right.
that helps.
Yeah, that
Nice
works
synergy.
quite nicely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so it's quite interesting for you guys out in America, because I think, most of us Saints fans who are here in England supporting Saints, or to be honest, a lot of Saints fans all around the world probably have a similar sort of experience, but the club kind of chooses you. You don't really have much choice in it. So, I mean, Tom, your dad was a big Saints fan.
Yep.
For me, my great granddad played for Saints, so once I was interested in football, that kind of came down through the family. And you kind of think of all those years of anguish that we've suffered because the club chose us. But to be sat next to someone who chose the Saints, I admire that. Admire that heart. And to stick with us as well.
Is that what
something
masochist?
like
I
that.
can't remember which one's which.
Yeah, I probably don't make good decisions, and this is just proof.
And so, I mean, it's one thing to be a fan out in the States watching the games, but then to set up a podcast, I mean, that takes a whole load of effort. I know it myself. There's an awful lot of effort involved in finding the people to speak to, whether it's kind of guests, whether it's players, whether it's finding the one other Southampton fan that in the whole of the city of London. And actually being able to kind of sit down, get the kit, work out how to do it, publish it, there's a lot of effort. So how did you get from just being like a, casual, right, I'm going to choose a team, to then being a guy who's doing a whole podcast on the Saints?
So part of it is that there wasn't one. It was, I am a big podcast listener. At school, I help the kids produce a podcast about school and news and things like that. So we're really, if you work at a school, how it is buying stuff through the school. It doesn't always happen very quickly. So oftentimes it was like, well, I'll just buy this. And at some point I just wound up with a bunch of mics and the whole setup, and said like, well, there's not one. Let's try it. And for me, the absolute hardest part was actually going out and talking to people. That was the most nerve-wracking thing. And then, and part of it was I wanted to feel like I was more connected to the team, because being out in California, the nearest other Southampton fan, now there's a guy about 45 minutes away, but the nearest one before that was 3 hours away. And
Wow.
so, you're by yourself. So this is a way for me to kind of get in touch with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I think we set up our podcast pretty much, within a matter of weeks, maybe a month in between. I remember it's the same thing for me, really. I was just thinking, well, there isn't a Southampton podcast at the moment. The one that had been there before had disappeared. I didn't have the kit from work, but my wife's a professional podcaster, so the kit was lying around my house. So, yeah, thought, why the hell not? And I suppose the amazing thing is, once you start the podcast, is like how quickly you become involved in the Southampton community of fans and like people surrounding the club. I've met loads of people I think we've just been doing it, just a little bit over a year now, and met so many people through this already. And presumably it's the same for you. I mean, over Skype, but
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then I'm sitting here talking to you now. Like that's a huge thing. And when I went to the match on Saturday, it felt kind of weird to tell people like, hey, I'm coming over. And people are like, awesome, I'll see you at the game. And I was like, wait, like, I guess people do listen, and like people are excited.
I heard you talking in the gents, and I turned around. I know you mate. I was like, "You're Matthew from California." You're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Hey."
Yeah. It was so it's awesome, and honestly, that's. I mean, as bad as the match was, and we'll talk about it, but just meeting everybody and seeing everybody, that's makes the trip absolutely worth it.
Cool. I want to go into that in more detail when we get to the end of the podcast, because I think there's going to be some tough bits in the next kind of hour or so as we plow our way through Saints performances. So we're going to save some good stuff about your whole experience of what it's like to come to the first game, and we're going to save that for the end. But obviously, if people want to listen to your podcast, do you have a particular favorite episode that you would point people to if they listen to this podcast, they've never heard your one yet? Where would you send them? Would you send them to just the most recent one, or would you pick one out?
Well, the most recent one would be fine, but it's different because it's live and it's in a pub and it sounds like it's in a pub. Honestly, I think my favorite ones are the ones kind of towards, if you see more than one guest, if you see a list of people. I think I talked to you on one that was kind of at the end of the transfer window. I talked to a bunch of people at the end of last season. And I think those are my favorite because I get to talk to so many more different kind of people.
Yeah.
But generally each week it's a different kind of somebody who writes, for whatever little outlet or whatever. We talk for a long ass time about the game, and that's it. So any episode, but if you want to hear a bunch of people, like just look towards the end of last season or, the end of any transfer window.
Okay. Have you ever had any guests where you've just been like, oh my God, what is this guy about? Or like, I just wasn't expecting, that. Something which just caught you totally from left field.
Okay, so I had one, I have two, but one, the guy messaged me about 15 minutes before we were going to start. And he just said, hey, if my voice sounds a little weird, like, don't freak out. And I was like, all right, man, like, I need to know what you're saying because this is all audio. Like, I need to know. And he was 15. And I was really worried when I got on, and I was like, I got to talk to your dad because laws are weird. But he was great. And then I had one, and I will say I published every episode that I've ever talked to. I've never gone like, I can't put this out, but I've been close. But yeah, I've had a couple people just go like, you were like, there's a list. I have a list of like on a Google Keep kind of sheet that the people who are never coming back on, and it's getting some numbers, more numbers maybe than the downloads, but it's okay.
I'm sure that's an exaggeration. So, I mean, I suppose the other thing as well is if people haven't listened to your podcast, do you want to explain the concept behind it? What do you do each week? I mean, I know, so I'm just asking you so you get a chance to tell people. So
basically every week I have kind of a different guest on, and my real goal, I think maybe it comes from being a teacher and just actually being genuinely interested in what people are doing, is I talk to them about their writing and how they got into it and how they went, like you asked me earlier, like how'd you go from just being a fan and how'd you get into the team? How'd you go from being a fan to actually writing about it and that stuff? And then we talk kind of about, we go into the most recent match really, and then we kind of build from there. And I don't like to do predictions because I'm not very good at them. So I try to avoid that. And I just use the excuse that I record immediately after the last game. So I don't have to mess with that. But everybody likes to ask me about predictions. So if we do that, I'll try.
Yeah, we'll try and do that.
Yeah, you get some, until recently, very optimistic predictions from me. No, none of them come true.
I don't think Tom's ever predicted Saints to lose, so he's not been doing very well this season.
Mark Lawrenson of Saints.
Let's just quickly, we're going to quickly speak to another American friend, so Jason Dickey, long-term fan of the podcast. He's written in, and I just need to find my cursor so I can find his email. He's written another long email, but I'm just going to pick up one thing here. And it just says, at what point do we simply have to blame the players? Do we want to pick this one up in the West Ham United?
It seems like the opportune moment, yeah.
So Jason, we're going to come back to that. Obviously, if you do want to email into the Saints FC podcast, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, or get in contact with us on Twitter. Saints versus Wigan. Should we cover this one really quickly? I think it'd be nice to have a little bit of positivity.
Yeah. It felt like a possible new beginning, didn't it?
Yeah.
New manager. New dawn. New manager. A manager that none of us probably particularly wanted, but probably I think most people recognised it was a sensible choice that he's managed the sort of fifth number of Premier League games. Ex-Saints player, a winner. A player that, as a player, is an absolute winner.
Yeah.
And, until recently, had done well with Stoke, so it felt like a new dawn.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I was feeling quite optimistic before the game. Obviously, we were playing against League One opposition. I was cautiously optimistic. I wasn't expecting us to roll them over. First half performance was pretty poor. It was kind of similar to what we've seen for the whole season, really. But then I thought the second half was pretty good. I think his halftime team talk seemed to do the job.
That's what I thought. And you look at Mark Hughes and kind of the attitude that he brings to the club, and you say, we haven't had that in Puel, we didn't have that in Pellegrino, but I think we did have that under Koeman, and that was maybe something that, and Pochettino doesn't look like a guy who just lets people get away with things either. Right. So like, I think when you kind of look at who that was, maybe that's what the team needed, and it seemed like, I don't know what he said at halftime, but it had to be something, and that was encouraging for me, and I think that gave me some false optimism for the future.
It seemed like he'd given them the kick up the backside that the players had really needed.
I wonder if they almost need a winner to kind of grab them by the scruff of the neck, this group of players.
There don't seem to be any natural leaders in that group. Having said that, though, I thought the second half was pretty good. I mean, again, League One opposition, although we could both be in the same division next season quite easily. Yeah. But we played very well in the second half. We did dominate it. We could have, should have won 3-0. Wigan will rue the chances they missed in the first half. But great, we're through to the semi-final of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
What I think is quite interesting here is you may have noticed on the Saints FC hashtag on Twitter and in the forums and on Reddit, a lot of people have been banging on about getting tickets. Yet when we ran a poll and asked people, would you prefer it if Southampton stayed in the Premier League or won the FA Cup? the FA Cup was kind of not considered important.
It's like 79% or something said they want to stay in the league or something.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but suddenly the FA Cup does seem to be quite interesting.
Yeah. No, I think to be fair, we'll come to the West Ham game, but if we take the FA Cup in isolation, we've done actually really quite well in every round. And also the FA Cup, strange things happen in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Strange. Wigan won it
and
a few years before that and got relegated. Portsmouth won it. And
the following season
got relegated. So, it does strange things. Over 90 minutes, one group of 11 players can beat another group of 11 players. And I think, to be fair, that Wigan game, for me, a highlight of the season was Cedric's goal at the end. So it's not surprising that people felt really positive after that game.
And so we took that positivity into an international break. England, they did all right. Matt is sat next to me. For those of you watching on YouTube, he's wearing an England shirt. So that's, I'm going to take that as a message of positivity. He wants to show support here and the country is visiting. I'm wearing a Southampton shirt from the last time we were in the Championship. So I'd take that to mean whatever you want. And then the thing is, so you think, right, this is great. He's got 2 weeks of an international break. So he's going to have a lot of time to work with the players, get the team ready for the challenge that they've got.
But also, just not many of our players playing internationally. Like McCarthy, Bertrand weren't playing.
Yeah, but Bertrand was injured, wasn't he? Because he was in the squad.
But like you remember, like Hoyt, Steve, the nucleus of the team, Romeo staying in the UK.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good.
Yeah, you would have thought so. So anyway, I was on holiday last week and I was cycle training for a big cycle ride I've got coming up this summer. You were on holiday this week as well, but you kind of went from California to London. And Tom, you were also in London at the weekend. So I think I'm going to hand over to you two because you two were both actually there. Let's start with the Saints' performance.
If you can call it that.
Absolutely.
First off, team sheet appeared to pick what you'd hope would be our strongest team. Charlie Austin instead of Carrillo, Højbjerg, Lamina. They're kind of the players that people have been calling out for. Redmond and Tadic. But I think
I've created some sort of
monster
Reddick,
bad player.
Tadmond.
It's a player that no one wants. I'll be very direct for the first time ever. I've been going to see Saints for 30 years. It's the worst performance I've ever seen. It was terrible.
Shut the front door.
Yeah.
That bad.
Yeah. It was the worst I've ever seen. They were outfought on every single blade of grass, outplayed, mentally not strong enough, weak when it mattered. And then ultimately, when it really comes down to it, we've got big name players that have played, the Serie A players, and Lamina and Hoyt, and they just didn't turn up for the game. Individual mistakes leading to goals. West Ham just wanted it more. They just pressured from the off and they pushed and they beat us. And I have a theory, and it's not particularly original one, that the nucleus, 3 or 4 members of our team are going to probably go to the World Cup. And I think you're seeing it with Bertrand and Cedric and Tadic. And I think now that 7 games to go, they know that Saints are probably down. They know that they're going to get a move no matter what. And they know they're going to the World Cup. And I think that we're losing 50-50 battles on the pitch because the players aren't willing to bust that gut in case they pull a hamstring or they get injured and they don't go to the World Cup. And I think that we saw that on Saturday. We were comprehensively outfought.
I could be wrong, but maybe this also somewhat explains the success in the FA Cup. Is because you leave with a trophy under your belt. That's something. You leave because you finished 16th or 17th. It doesn't say anything about you as a player really. But if I can go on about the game, this is my first time in England. I live in California. I own one pair of pants that's not for work. And
pants are trousers, by the way.
Trousers. Yeah. This is another thing. Is we have a list going in the hotel room of all the things that we say that are things, and then you guys call them something different.
Because you don't want to be telling people you got one pair of pants, mate. That's not
that's outside of work. That means you wear one pair every weekend.
Yeah. So. But I left 75-degree weather. I had to buy trousers. I had to buy a jacket. I did a number of things to kind of prepare myself for the trip. And I didn't prepare for what I saw. on Saturday. Like I was so pumped for that match. I was so excited to go in there. And like, I remember I recorded like kind of just walking in, you could just hear the music, you could hear the crowd. And like you can hear me on the video. I sound like an idiot, but I'm just laughing because I'm like so excited. And then kickoff happened. And by 18 minutes in, it was just like, oh, the jet lag has hit me. And now I'm fighting this for the next kind of 60 minutes.
Well, fair play to West Ham. They wanted it more. They really did. And this is something you said earlier, the allegedly terrible atmosphere at the London Stadium. It definitely wasn't. It was loud. It was raucous. They were really, I mean, we were very close to West Ham fans, but they were really up for it. And Saints looked mentally shot. Players like Gabbiadini looked lost. He looked like he'd never seen a football before. Austin didn't still look fit.
He doesn't look fit when he is fit.
He doesn't look fit when he is fit. And I was shocked. And I think that the horrible thing was if there was a game we had to play away from home, you'd have taken that one.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have taken West Ham
in the London Stadium.
Yeah, because you knew and Mark Hughes must have said to them, go out there, beat them to the first challenge, score the first goal, that stadium turns. Oh, yeah. But, we didn't. Instead, from the very first 50-50, which they won, they were in the ascendancy and the crowd got behind them more and more. And then, as you say, after 18 minutes, the game was finished. Yeah, I mean, I could say, 25, 30 years of watching Saints, it was comfortably the most uncomfortable experience I've ever had.
I mean, how many games did you see when we were in the Championship on the season we got relegated?
Season we got relegated, I was up north at university. I didn't see a huge number. But I don't think what was shocking was the mentally, it was the lack of effort.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they're necessarily better players. It's something we've spoken about a number of times before now, where the fine lines in the Premier League of where players are all kind of about the same, and then you get certain players that are just a bit better, and they just mentally went but they wanted it more, and I think we got found out.
So I mean, let's start the dissection. So bear in mind, I've only seen the kind of match of the day and Saints website highlights. First goal, Saints corner. It's not the first time, probably or the last time, we're going to concede from our own corner. Firstly, what really annoys me is we don't have James Ward-Prowse
100%.
on the pitch. I can deal with not having James Ward-Prowse on the pitch if we train another one of our effing players to take a bloody set piece. You know what? How can it be that we don't have anyone else who can take a set piece and whip the ball in and cause trouble? Joe Hart is, he's so suspect. As a goalkeeper, he's a complete nightmare. You just got to whip it in there. You've got to challenge him. Instead, we're playing a short corner, comes out to Lamina on the edge of the box. And when you're talking about your commitment, it was clear that none of the players were showing for Lamina. So he had the ball and nobody was showing for him, which meant that as the West Ham players started to come out and started to close down, he had nobody to give it to, and he ends up giving it away.
To be fair to Lamina, when that goal goes in, he's actually on the 6-yard box, I think, actually, because he's traced that ball all the way back. So he showed the effort.
Which you can't say for all of our players, right?
True. He did track all the way back, but it frustrates me a little bit because he made the mistake against Newcastle. He completely whiffed on the ball on the corner coming out, and that led to a goal. And the blame's going to fall on him a little bit for this one, even though it's not all his fault. He did try to track back, but we just as a team, I don't understand what's happening there. I don't understand how I play center back when I play, and it don't look like it because I'm 5'7", but it's just because I don't like to run. But if I go all the way forward for a corner, damn well sure I'm gonna actually try to score while I'm there. And I don't understand what everybody's doing. And I know, and just to go on the set piece thing, every set. Did you see a good set piece all day?
But we have not seen it. I mean, Ward-Prowse had a really good purple patch, fell out of favour inexplicably, and now every set piece we have, it's one of either Tadic or Bertrand trying to take it, and they very rarely beat the first man. And the problem is they're not being the first man, and therefore our attack suddenly becomes us defending,
right?
Which
and
is
defending a counter-attack, which we've been terrible at defending all season,
and also leading us to make individual error goals. And you've asked how many goals have we conceded from our own corners this year. So how many goals have we conceded from our players losing possession? when they don't really need to and they shouldn't be under pressure.
Unfortunately, I don't know the answers to that. I did try and do a little bit of research, but I mean, we've conceded a lot of goals when we've been on the front foot. We concede goals to counter-attacks a lot. And, maybe Pellegrino was right. Maybe when we're going forward, we should be thinking about what we need to do because he knew that we were always going to lose the ball. I mean, it's a massively negative way to approach it, but...
Well, the Ugly Inside said this, a really good post earlier. They said that Puel got slaughtered because one of the things Puel believed was that we do not have the players to defend if we commit forward. And Pellegrino obviously saw the same thing. And we got found out again on Saturday.
Well, everybody, I think all of us wanted the club to do something different going forward. We wanted them to do, be more aggressive, play 4-4-2, whatever it is. And I don't think Mark Hughes is watching our Twitter posts and going, yeah, those guys got it. I don't believe that for a second. But now we have two managers who, whether we like them or not, have kind of been proven right. Like at some point, was it Jason that wrote in? At some point, like this falls on the players. If you got two managers who say you got to do things one way and it maybe doesn't work to our liking, then you got a manager who comes in and tries to do something different and it completely falls apart. Like the questions are maybe it's not the manager. Maybe it's above him. Maybe it's below him. But it's got to go somewhere.
So following that kind of first goal, we then considered that chance to Arnautovic. He should have put it away, shouldn't he? Yeah. I mean, right in the front of the goal.
We should have been 3-0 down after 18 minutes.
And then we had that second goal where Højbjerg did basically what Lamina did, except kind of well within our own half. Yeah. Again, though, casual tracking back. I mean, this you can see it much better when you're in the stadium. You can see the whole pitch. You can see what's going on. You can take in a lot more. But just from my general observations on the highlights, we weren't tracking back. We weren't looking like we were ever going to win the second ball. No. So, I mean, that was the one where Arnautovic headed it at McCarthy and the ball comes out and Arnautovic puts it in. If he doesn't put it in, there was another West Ham player waiting there to put it in. Yet the Southampton defenders, midfielders have not got back. They've not anticipated that there could be a rebound. There could be something to be chasing.
But how many times this season? And also another cross into the box where our centre-backs are incapable of winning the header. It's baffling. Hoyt, 6'4", terrible in the air. Stevens, shorter, but still, 5'11", 6 foot, not strong in the air. We saw that with the third goal. They seem to be completely bamboozled. And again, we'd need to go through the games, but if you just think Glenn Murray, the equalising goal for Huddersfield, all goals where people just peel off our centre-backs and they just don't seem to grasp the flight of the ball. And you wonder, this basic football, this is surely the most basic thing for a centre-back, and they're not getting it right.
One of the things which really struck me when I went to, I think it was the Huddersfield game, Fraser Forster was still in goal. And I hadn't actually selected my seats and I'd let the kind of computer do it for me and I ended up right behind the goal. And Fraser Forster was just kind of whispering to his centre-backs. There was no kind of commanding or communication going on. I think all of these goals are the mistake of a lack of communication.
And leadership.
Yeah.
It's leadership. There's been a lot of talk about Fonte, who's now plying his trade in China. Fonte was a leader. Van Dijk had his prima donna moments, but Van Dijk was a leader of men.
He's a leader when he can be bothered.
Yeah, but we do not have a single leader on that pitch. From up front to the goalkeeper, there's not a single leader.
Yeah,
I'm struggling to find one in the dressing room anywhere. And maybe Hughes is it, but we got to have somebody out there on the pitch that's doing it, and it's just not there.
But even then, is it really going to be enough?
No. Yeah. So, should we move on to the third goal? Another counter-attack. Lamina losing the ball again.
So can I just talk about the mood in the stands? I was asked to do some video stuff, and I was asked to do my kind of reaction, and none of the footage I got from the reactions to their goals I could use because the guy directly behind me was just repeatedly calling Tadic just awful things.
Dropping the C-bomb.
Yes. And, I think you
chancer.
I think you guys utilize it. Not you personally, but you're in Britain, that gets thrown around much more frequently than in the United States. It's unheard of. like I have a horrible mouth. You heard it before we started recording, but like I don't say that. Like it's tough for me to say. But the mood in the stands after the second goal was. It had completely flipped from pre-match, where all the West Ham fans were now much more kind of like jovial, and they were now giving it to us, and we were just kind of all pissed off, and it was over. And then many people had left to go get beer at halftime by the time that third goal went in, and nobody, like you said earlier, nobody challenged Arnautovic on that goal at all. Like he just casually side foots it in, tells us to do whatever he did on it's just his tongue thing, and then I think he ran all the way over to Hughes and gave him some. So
yeah, I mean it's a terrible goal to concede, and if I think we spoke about earlier, you watch the body language of Hoyt as the ball comes over, where Hoyt is completely baffled by the ball. But again, to my point earlier, Cedric gets
earlier,
done.
Tom, you were demonstrating this with some moves. I mean, I wonder if we can do a YouTube exclusive.
So YouTube exclusive is kind of like the ball comes across.
I'm going to try and describe this for everyone. So Tom is now standing up.
Yeah, hang on, I'll take this mic.
He's got the microphone. Right, he's put down the microphone. So he's saying the ball comes across. He's trying to pretend to be Wesley Hoyt at this moment. He's looking aimlessly in the air and put his arms out.
On Arnautovic to start. And then he sort of starts to turn. And by the time his lumbering Dutch body has sort of moved around, he's kind of at this position as on Arnautovic.
This really doesn't work for a podcast, I've realised. But basically, Tom is just describe what you've done there, Tom, on the microphone.
What I'm really trying to show is that the ball comes over from the right, and for some reason Hoyt's kind of running backwards, and because he's got the turning circle of an oil tanker, by the time the ball flies over him, and Arnautovic has readied his body and hit quite a sweet body, to be in all honest, Hoyt's still not facing the right way. He's looking at the goal rather than getting anywhere near Arnautovic. And again, like you just wonder, like, what are they doing with the flight of the ball? Well, he's 6'4". All right, Arnautovic is a big lad, but Hoyt's bigger. He's 6'4". Like he should win that ball. But between him and McCarthy, there's just no communication. There's no leadership, and there's no kind of like, I am having this ball.
Yeah.
And if you look at Arnautovic, he never once like even thinks for a second that Hoyt's going to get a touch on it, because he's just lining up the side foot volley the entire time. And it was a sweet finish. Like I have to give him that. But like he knew who he was up against. He kind of like, like, I'm going to just peel off your back, and nobody's at the back post, and now we're 3-0 up, and this game is done. And it's 100% kind of on the center backs, but our fullbacks too.
Well, Cedric, they beat Cedric too easily to cross the ball. Like, I just don't understand. But again, Cedric's head is elsewhere. There was rumours, talk about him in the press last week or so, that he sort of thought he was going to be able to go, and then when Van Dijk went, they said, well, no one else is going. His head is elsewhere. He'll probably end up at Everton, won't he?
Yeah, you can see that. Okay, I mean, West Ham, I think things improved in the second half, but by that point it was already over, wasn't it? I mean, we still didn't register a shot on target for the whole game. Charlie Austin had 2 kind of half chances. Aaron Cresswell is taking the mickey out of Saints when he's like shooting from 40 yards out and hitting the crossbar, isn't he? I mean, that doesn't normally happen in a West Ham game. Normally he's passing the ball, he's trying to create something. It was pretty pathetic. Bring up the XG stats, which we now all know about thanks to Duncan Alexander episode. It was 0.5. We had an expected goals of half a goal versus West Ham United, who have shipped 3-4-3 in their last
lost the last 3 games by at least 3 clear goals. But like having said, like we genuinely did not look like we were going to get close to scoring.
Yeah,
certainly in the first half, like did not even get a sniff. It was unbelievable how bad we were up front.
I remember whispering to myself and probably the people around me, like, well, we're not going to see any action on this end because, West Ham was shooting towards us in the first half. And I was like, well, Saints aren't going to do anything the second half. So, like, I guess we just get the binoculars out and try to see the other end of the pitch.
Because you're really far away as well than at a stadium.
Yeah, so terrible, basically.
Awful. Not a single redeeming aspect.
So, I mean, can we just we've never done player ratings on this podcast before, but I wonder, can you just pick out a couple of players and perhaps explain what you would give them out of 10 and why? Why don't I just pick out a couple of players? Because you guys are at the match, you can tell me what you saw throughout the 90 minutes. So let's start with Lamina, who in the highlights was culpable for 2 of the goals.
So I think the player ratings started at 6, and then they kind of go either way from there. Because I feel like everybody's player ratings are different.
Yeah.
And so if he starts at a 6, he gives away the ball for a goal. Granted, nobody was showing, but he's down to 5 right there. He tracked back. Maybe he's up to a 5.5. At best, he finishes there. He probably finishes lower than that.
And I think that with Lamina, what I would say is that at least he's got quality.
Yeah.
You know, like, he made 2 mistakes that led to goals, but there was enough opportunity for us. Like, we had chances to stop those goals. It wasn't like he passed the ball to someone on the end of the 6-yard box. Like, there were chances to stop those goals, and the collective will of Saints wasn't enough to do that.
So I'm going to choose some other players who've been quite popular throughout the season. Cedric, for example, what would you give him out of 10?
Cedric's already at the World Cup. Like, his head is gone. He's not busting.
Drop him, bring back Matty Targett, who's gone 18 games undefeated for Fulham Football Club.
But we've also, like, do we have a genuine question, like, apart from Yoshida, who can play right back, do we have another right back in the first team squad?
Jeremy Pied,
yeah.
Wasn't even on the bench.
Yeah.
And I know that because I said, is Pied going to come in because Cedric's garbage? And somebody's like, he's not even on the sheet.
Yeah. And Pied can't buy a game, can he? In the 2 years he's been at Saints, he can't buy a game. So I don't know.
Yeah. What about McCarthy? Because I had him down as slightly suspect for that first goal, but you guys were right behind the goal and you thought it was a good shot.
I think he's the best player on the pitch on Saturday.
Okay.
Could have been worse.
And what does the best player on the pitch get out of 10? I mean, this is going to be damning of the rest of the Saints team.
6.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think, like, in all honesty, like, maybe he could have come. It was a wicked ball for the third goal, a wicked ball. But could he do anything about the first goal? No. Like, from where I was, it was a rasping half volley, which was rising. It was a really good shot. Yeah. And for the second, like, he did his best for that save. Like, if Hoyt isn't fast enough to react, then, you know, like, I don't really know. Maybe he could have got the third. Like, if he'd have come out and got it, but they'd have just got another one.
Creswell would have scored a 40-yard screamer in off the bar.
Well, and maybe he's expecting Hoyt to actually get something on it. You know, if Hoyt gets a little tiny touch, the ball doesn't go in. You know,
I do think kind of like the thing which just resonates and has resonated all season is that, like, lack of leadership, that lack of communication. I was shocked when I saw Fraser Forster kind of whispering at his defenders, not commanding them, like the kind of 6'6" beast of a man that he is. And I just don't know if we're ever going to sort out that defence unless there is a leader thrown in there.
Well, I think you're going to sort it out in the summer, because we have to be realistic that we will not be in the Premier League and we will lose the 2 fullbacks, and we might keep Hoyt and we will keep Stevens. So, like, you will sort out that defence, because
we'll probably keep Yoshida. We'll have Stevens and Yoshida again.
Yeah, we will. And you know what? Like, that's a great centre back pairing for the Championship, but, like, that team is going to be sorted out, but it's going to be sorted out because we've got too much, £68 million worth of players wages per year, and if any of them could really hold their hands up and say they've earned it this season, I'll be amazed.
I think if we do go down, which is highly likely at this point, I think Cedric has to go. I want him gone, because you look at the performance he put in on Saturday, and he is a good right back, but he's not going to do well in the Championship, which, from what I've seen, we watch very few games of Championship football in the United States, but it seems like, tackles, you can leave them in a little longer, you can go in a little harder. Referees are less lenient, or more lenient, I guess, and less likely to give yellow cards and stuff, and that doesn't fit his game at all. He's going to get out muscled on every.
And pitches are small, pitches are tighter, crowds are more tighter to the pitch. It's a hostile environment, and Cedric strikes me as like a really nice guy.
Somebody said he's a continental center back, and I just kind of agreed, but I'm not sure that is what it is. But I think I understand what they mean, is that he's meant to play this kind of like nice passing game, kind of going forward. But you leave a few tackles in on him, and he's kind of like, okay, guys, I'll just hold on for next week and hope it's not the same way.
And 8 games away from a World Cup, he's definitely like that.
Well, I mean, he's tasted being a European champion, which was unexpected for Portugal. Why wouldn't he be excited about the World Cup? Bit disappointing. Well, I mean, I say a bit disappointing. That's understatement of the year, isn't it? Imagine if you'd flown halfway across the world for this and brought your family.
Who would do that?
I don't I guess I did.
So, I mean, how does that feel, Matt, to have chosen the worst game that Tom has seen in 25 to 30 years of going to see Southampton? And I can tell you, in the last 25 to 30 years, there's been some pretty bad Southampton
we've seen
teams.
some bad teams.
I mean, the performance, I think, Tom, what you're really getting to is the commitment. And none of the players showed the sort of commitment that you've shown in terms of kind of saving up, organising your holiday around this.
Yeah, like I cut my healthcare coverage by like a lot over a year to save for this trip. Like that is really where the money came from. Like
I'm so pleased we have the NHS.
We switched insurance plans and just we're like, if we don't have a major trauma in the family, we will be able to go on vacation.
If anyone from Saints is listening to this,
and
you should step in and make up the difference.
My kids are like, when are we going to get braces? I'm like, not this year. But and so when we come over and the first thing everybody says is that was the worst game we've ever seen, and we said that about Newcastle. Like that it doesn't feel great.
But seriously, to that point, like, at what point do the players step up and say enough is
Jason
enough?
Dickey's right, isn't he?
Yeah, he's right. And like, I'm amazed after the Newcastle game, like simple PR, like how many Saints fans in Newcastle? 3,000? Say you wanted to give them £50 each to cover the cost of their transport, say the cost to cover the coach and the tickets. So what's that? 3,000 times 50, that's 150 grand. Like, just give them the money, like earn a little bit of goodwill. And that our players seem completely impervious to this idea of earning goodwill.
So, I mean, this weekend we've got Arsenal at the Emirates. I mean, you've experienced what it's like to be a football fan in England, where you get messed around by the television all the time.
This is horrible what they did.
From Saturday to Monday and then back to Sunday. Unfortunately, that doesn't work out for you, Matt, so you're going to miss out on Arsenal. You are going to see the England ladies team, which I think is going to be good. You're going to see a team that's actually committed to playing well.
Yeah, and I mean, new coach. That was exciting. Or is exciting. Our women's team in the US is actually good. Like yours.
The England team is a lot better than it used to be. Definitely.
It's and they're playing against Wales, which I don't know a ton about Wales, but I imagine that being that close and this should have there should be some tackles left in. This is a qualifier. This game actually matters, and I'm excited to see St. Mary's. Like that. I'm super super stoked on that. But like, yeah, I'm hoping that the game is better than what I saw on Saturday.
I mean, I think you'll see a better performance from the England ladies team than the Southampton team on Saturday. I remember, I grew up in the West Country, so it's like Bath, Bristol, and Bristol Rovers used to play. And the Bristol Rovers ladies team's quite good, and they once beat the men's team at some point in the early 90s, and it was like the talk of the town. Everyone's like, "Can you believe it? The ladies have beaten the men's team." But yeah, you could, because the ladies team were in the top division, the men's were languishing in the bottom of kind of what
England women will give Saints a good run out.
I think they would. I think they'd be more committed to the 50-50 challenges. I think they'd show. I think 100%. They show more bite than the men's team at the moment. Should we move on to Arsenal?
Oh God!
So, I mean, I've talked about this before. I love going to the Emirates. I think I've been 3 times. I've never seen Saints lose at the Emirates.
Did you see that Cuco Martino goal in person?
I saw the Cuco Martino, but that was at St. Mary's. Yeah,
right.
I did see the Nathaniel Klein one at the Emirates, which was really tasty. I saw Jordi Classy, the most successful Saints player ever, pretty much, according to Duncan Alexander. Highest win ratio.
Did he sit right here?
No, we did this one in Tom's house. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank God.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just the downgrade.
What are you thinking of the pressure?
Downgrading. Yeah, I feel much better now. Can we start over? Let's go.
Yeah, and I've seen Fraser Forster do, I think, pretty much the greatest goalkeeping performance I've ever seen. Although apparently, in terms of the shots stopped, that was a record, Fraser Forster's performance at the Emirates in the 0-0 against Arsenal. Until De Gea beat it earlier this season. Again, at the Emirates.
Yeah.
So I've never seen Saints lose at the Emirates, but I have a feeling that this Sunday that's going to change. Let's try and pick out some positive here. So you guys are at the game on Saturday. Is there anything at all, one tiny little glimmer of hope out of the 90 minutes that you saw on Saturday that makes you think that Saints could go to the Emirates on Sunday and get a result?
Yeah, it's the squad. So what's the only thing we've got really going for us is that 11 players that
don't have to play.
Not all of them have to play. And like we could drop a few of them and we could bring in, and this isn't original, it's been on Twitter, but it's probably right. I think Daily Echo we're talking about. Bring in Romeu, bring in Yoshida, bring in Ward-Prowse, bring in Sims. Like, what have we got to lose?
Nothing
like,
point.
We've got nothing left to lose. So like, bring in these players that are bring in Shane Long. At least he gives you something.
Second best player probably on Saturday, next to McCarthy. And when he came on for Gabbiadini, I think at halftime, and I said it before, like, I think I don't, it's a completely different experience, match day experience, and I won't get it, but I drank a lot before the game, and I wasn't expecting that. So I'm pretty sure he came on at halftime. Yeah. But he was good when he came on.
That.
Okay.
Yeah. So Shane Long, yeah.
So that's what we've got. Like, what we've got is we're not like a really threadbare squad. We actually have a surprisingly big squad, and I think now's the time to use them.
So Arsenal have Aubameyang. He's played 6 games for Arsenal, scored 5 goals. They have Mesut Ozil, who's incredible creator. He's kind of like Tadic if Tadic had a bit more about him. And they also have Mkhitaryan from Man United recently, who's also another incredibly creative player.
And if OBR's not doing it, they just bring on Lacazette.
Yeah. I mean, at least they don't have Giroud anymore. Let's face it, because we did quite well against Arsenal, didn't we? We were beating them, and then they brought on Giroud.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is they can hurt us from so... If you look at Saints are very one-dimensional, aren't they? Like, I don't even know actually how Saints hurt teams, really. But like Arsenal could just punish us from all over the pitch.
We don't.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't.
But if you look, like, if Mkhitaryan has an off day, then Ozil would just do something. Ozil has an off day, like, that Ramsey steps up. They've got like quality throughout the team.
Yeah.
So the last time we played them, it was a 4:30 or 4 o'clock a.m. start my time, which is early, noon kickoff, I think. And we were holding our own, doing just fine. And then it was Alexis to Giroud, I think, for the goal. And
both those players are gone.
They're gone. So so that means we're going to win. I don't think so.
I'll be amazed. Be amazed.
So I've picked out one little glimmer of hope. Do you remember when we had a go at Garth Crooks for his team of the week, and he said that Mario Lemina was an Arsenal player, if ever he'd seen one, and why hadn't Arsenal signed him?
Based on one game.
So based on that, if Lemina is an Arsenal player, and Lemina gave away the ball twice to create 2 West Ham United goals, if all of the Arsenal players give us that many chances, then maybe, just maybe, we might convert one of them and squeak a win. Is that clutching at straws there?
I don't even know if I can see the straws that you're clutching at. They're so small.
You know what? I think it's got so bad that we just can't even imagine what this group of players are capable of. But this group of players are capable of playing some decent football. They have done in the past. Not a too dissimilar group of players. There's still some glimmer of hope, but I'm finding this is a hard sell. I'm looking across my sofa and looking at 2 forlorn faces.
I do understand what you're saying, and I know that they can play good football. They can. I mean, in terms of like just passing the ball and doing that kind of stuff, like, we're great, but we lack the kind of, and in the same way that Arsenal doesn't have, you lack that little bit of edge that to kind of, when a team comes at you and a team leaves a tackle, and that you can continue to play your game and also give it back to them without getting a red card and getting sent off.
Arsenal are also a team that lack that edge, though, aren't they? That kind of
they've
50-50.
got quality, and that's the difference. And I wonder with Saints as well, that we played a lot of the big name. We played all the players that we wanted us to play, and I wonder if, like, Mark Hughes is actually quite an old-fashioned manager, isn't he? And you wonder if he might just go like Stephen Davis, get him in. Like, I know what Stephen Davis can do. Like, like get players in that he's going to fight for it.
Yeah,
there's a good chance we will not see Lemina for at least a few weeks. And that's harsh on him, maybe because I mean, as a fan, I've been calling for Lemina and Højbjerg to play for so long because, everybody kind of jumped on the blame Romeu kind of bandwagon. And I was one of them. It's like, he's slow. He ponders on the ball. He gave the ball away a couple times to allow opposition goals. But I think sometimes you kind of need that guy who's just going to sit there and do that job. But I think the problem is moving forward, we don't have anybody that's creating chances. We don't have anybody that's taking the chances. maybe now that Austin's semi-fit, maybe he can do that. And I think that's all it takes is if we put away a couple chances, I think we're good. I think that the tide tends to turn a little bit and we'll be okay. But until then, until we can actually convert a chance and until we can actually, until we can actually do that, then I think we're going to be in some trouble.
Yeah. I think that I just can't. My concern is like that. I think you've just seen all of the self-belief drain from Saints now. I think the players know that they're out of there. Like you might beef out, they'll all go. Like I think you'll see. It'll be fascinating. So if we could write down the squad now, I genuinely think half that squad won't be there next season.
Maybe we'll try that coming up. Right. I mean, the only kind of glimmer of hope I've got is that I've not travelled down the overground to Highbury and Islington, got off and seen us lose to Arsenal before, and I'm hoping that record's going to stay, although I don't see it, to be honest. Let's move.
I guess the one thing, Arsenal's got to play Spartak Moscow on Thursday. Yeah, like that could go poorly.
Yeah.
And
it's a long way to go.
They have one thing to do to play for this season, and that's the Europa League. And so if maybe the best thing for them is if they get through this game and it's close, like they win, but it's close and they know they have to, maybe they allow an away goal. Yeah. So they know that they have to rest certain players to go away to Russia. Yeah. Maybe that helps. But then, Aubameyang, he's cup tied for the competition. So he's going to play against us. But maybe some of those other players, maybe we don't see Ozil, maybe we don't see Ramsey. And I think that might actually help us. But that, like you said, clutching at some straws. And I'm really just hoping at this point.
Hope is all we have. Let's move on to Southampton finances. So, I mean, if we were looking for a positive story, then Southampton financially, they've been doing brilliantly. They announced a pre-tax profit of their 2016-17 year of 43.7 million or 34 million pounds. They moved from a position of net debt to having net cash. Effectively that means they've got money in the bank. Basically they're doing well financially. I mean, it's a good time to be a director or an owner selling Southampton Football Club. I mean, I've kind of put conspiracy theories, question mark here. It's not really a conspiracy theory, but basically, is the root of a lot of our problems the fact that we've sold lots, we've not reinvested? We've been kind of like flogging a theory that we can do things on the cheap better than everyone else, and it's not really worked out that well. And the club is rich, but they're about to see the value of the club plummet if things don't change dramatically over the next 7 games.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when teams start to show that they are financially doing well and the results on the pitch are the opposite, that's really when the fans start to go. The fans, and I think I've heard people say that season tickets at Saints are extremely expensive compared to some of the people around.
About 6th or 7th most expensive in the division.
Yeah. And I have that stupid the spreadsheet that I constantly update that nobody cares about but me, I think, but I still do it. But it's we have the 8th most expensive squad in the league, and so you look at the season tickets and go, okay, that's fine, but the football doesn't reflect that at all, and
£68 million worth of wages as well. That's an insane amount of money to pay any of those players anywhere near that.
I think what I find quite remarkable about this, the accounts only came out recently, but that's only up to the 30th of June 2017. So this doesn't include the Van Dijk money in terms of what they've sold there. So we already had cash in the bank when we sold Van Dijk for 75 million. Okay, I know some of that went to Celtic, some of that went to the agent, etc., etc. But also, what was quite interesting about this, summer 17 was the first time that Saints had spent more than they actually sold since I think the Lieber family, or since we've been back in the Premier League.
So who did we? So we bought in the 2 big ones, were obviously Hoyt and Lamina.
Yeah, and who did we sell? Hardly anyone. Really.
We didn't sell anyone in the summer. Which one of our things we often said against Pellegrino is he was the first Saints manager in years to inherit a stronger squad than the one than the one in the predecessor.
I mean, we also had the bonus of. Turnover rose from 60 million to 182 million pounds. Or no, it rose by 60 million to 182 million pounds. A lot of that came from the new television deal. Right. So Mr. Gow, if you're listening to this, this is what's going to happen to your television money if we get relegated to the Championship. So life in the Championship, you get £4.3 million from the Premier League, which is your kind of solidarity.
So that's your parachute money.
No, this is not the parachute money. Parachute money is better, so I'll explain the parachute money. But this is typical. So let's say we've been in the Championship for 3 or 4 seasons.
Every Championship club.
Yeah, so every Championship club gets 4.3 million.
It's like an allowance.
Yeah, that's kind of their allowance, and then they get about £2 million for the television rights.
So that's Fraser Forster's earnings, and probably someone relatively
Sam
Gallagher. Yeah, it probably is.
Interestingly, Villa had 16 games on the television this season. I want you to guess how much money they got in bonus.
16 Championship games.
So basically, what I've told you, that's your basic salary.
6.3 million. I think you said, is that right?
Yeah, so 4.3 and 2 million. Yeah. 6.3, that's your basic. You get bonus for every time you get shown on Sky. So guess how much, without looking at my computer here, how much Aston Villa have made from being shown 16 times on Sky this season?
I'm going to say 4 million extra.
3.2.
520,000.
Jesus Christ. So it'd be 520. So that's 16. So that's an average of under 40. Right, not even that, like 30 grand.
Yeah,
might be more like 35 grand a game.
Basically, you get 100 grand for every home game, and you get 10 grand for every away game.
I mean, 10 grand probably doesn't even cover the transport costs.
Right.
Yeah, like if you think about the hotel rooms and everything.
Well, I think we're going to be staying in the Travel Inn next season.
Yeah, we're sleeping on the coach.
So to compare that, so that's what the top earner, one of the top earners in the Championship, on the basic, you're getting about £6.5 million, right? Premier League bottom club gets £100 million. Top gets 150 million. So I mean that is a significant difference. I mean, if you talk about a business, if a business went from its turnover having 100 million coming in down to 6 million, that business is gone. That's dead.
Yeah. Well, I guess then we just have to go all in on getting promoted first time round.
Yeah.
Because that's how we have to do it.
And so the way the parachute payments work is you get 55% of your Premier League allowance. Say if you're bottom club, you get 55 million in your first season down, then you get 45 million in your second season down, then 20 million, and then nothing. So if you don't get promoted in the first 3 seasons, or
first two, really,
the first 2,
yeah, because 20 million is peanuts, isn't it? And that's kind of
But even so, I mean, if the company that you're working for, its turnover changed by 50%, that's big trouble.
Yeah.
And Gow has invested £200 million in this club.
Of whose money?
Well, I mean, presumably it comes from a bank loan, or it comes from loaning off his own companies, or...
I mean, it's weird, isn't it? If you think about it, like everything Southampton Football Club was meant to stand for over the last few years, and we sold to a Chinese guy that no one knows, like what his source of income is, who he is, what his plans are. What's been amazing is the lack of communication. I think his daughter spoke at that event in the museum in Southampton the other week, but by all accounts, that was just kind of platitudes and niceties, and then that was that. This is a bigger topic than Saints, but in what other world could a community asset that's been a bedrock of that part of the world for over 100 years, that provides that provides employment for hundreds of people beyond, and that's just directly, like beyond staff, beyond the economic impact and the prestige that it brings to an area. In what other world could an asset like that just be sold? It does make you wonder what's going on, and we're saying it's like, who knows? Like, who knows what Gow's plan is? Like, no one knows. We are, maybe we'll find out, but is there even a plan?
I don't know.
Well, okay, so here's one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about. Maybe this is the alcohol talking, but like, if you look at the hope that maybe he has investing all that money, if he goes down, not as many games are shown in the Championship. There is a package you can buy, but like more than half the teams opt out. So like right away, half the games are gone.
Yeah.
If you're playing one of them, you're not in. So automatically, me as a fan, I get less than half of the games that I could have gotten this year. Anybody that's looking to choose a team, if he's hoping to expand into the United States, anybody's looking to do that, you're out.
Or expand into China.
Yeah.
But like, and so sometimes I feel like a little bit weird because I am a fan that's in a foreign country. And so like when we talk about commercialization and stuff like that, like when they came to Baltimore, like that was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't like that, but like, you know, you kind of have to keep winning to do that. And maybe expansion in the US is out anyway, because as you know, the US failed to make the World Cup this year, which means people aren't going to give a shit about soccer or football for the next four years.
I have got some good news for our listeners abroad, actually. And so I'm looking a little bit further ahead. So next season is not the case. But from the 2019 to 2020 season, championship teams will be allowed to stream their own games.
Oh, that's good.
So if we're still in the championship 2019-2020 season, good news is you'll be able to watch every game on the streaming service.
I can shout in comfort my own home.
I'm in. Sign me up.
But I mean, with this is a genuine concern we've had from a lot of our listeners from abroad that actually that, you know, they're just not going to see as much of us in the championship. But, I mean, Aston Villa had 16 televised games this season. So if they're televised in the UK, you can definitely get hold of them anywhere you have an internet connection. I think you'll still be able to watch the games in the championship. It's going to be tougher though.
Yeah, well, and you talk about Saints streaming their own games. Like there were a couple of games that were on the FA Cup that we don't get televised early rounds, and I was like, you know, I just want to listen to the radio on the website, and even that doesn't work. So like, you telling me Saints are going to stream it, like unless it's on YouTube, I'm not 100% confident it's going to happen.
Bear in mind, until this year, you couldn't even listen to BBC Radio Solent in the UK. Until this year.
Well, yeah, if you're outside of Hampshire.
If you're outside of Hampshire, so it's kind of crazy. I think but again, going back to the central theme, the club owes fans the respect to tell them what's happening. And the club owes the fans that go week in, week out, that travel to Newcastle, that go away at West Ham. It costs money. Like, people haven't had a real wage increase in years. You know, Southampton is one of the more affluent parts of the world, but it's not the most affluent part of the world.
I think in the EU countries, like, despite the fact our economy's grown the most in recent years in terms of real life wage increases, the UK is bottom of the pile.
And you can bet your bottom dollar Saints haven't pegged their season tickets or haven't done anything about the matchday experience to keep it cheaper or kept shirts cheaper. So they owe it to the fans. I don't think they care. Like, I think we're now past that point. I hate to say it about my team, but I don't think they care. And I think the Saints fans will get nothing from the club.
Right, let's draw a line under that. End of negativity.
All right.
Do this.
Matthew.
Yeah.
First football match experience. So, hang on. Have you actually been to you have been to a live football game before, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah.
But the first Saints experience, I mean, I'm not going to ask Tom for his first one. I mean, we're going to be talking about very hazy memories from the early 90s.
Yeah, as a kid being taken to the Dell.
You assume mine from Saturday aren't hazy.
Well, I think hazy memories from Saturday are more likely to be based in the truth. So, Matt, just tell us about it. What was it like? I mean, exciting. Let's start with the build-up. Let's start with the good stuff. We don't need to talk about any of the content of the actual game.
Sure. So, I mean, I had been looking forward to this. I booked the plane tickets in October. And so I had been looking forward to this.
Wow.
So I had been looking forward to this for a long time, and thought I was going to get two games, or matches, but whatever. And so I think though, even when I realized that West Ham would be the only one, it made it that much more special. So I'm really looking forward to it. We got off the plane on Friday. My family kind of slept in until they weren't even up when I left. I kind of told them I'll see you later. Yeah. And I walk out of the hotel and the cold, I left 75 degrees. So I walk out and it's 42 Fahrenheit, I think. And it kind of hits me.
I
and
have
it's
no
just
idea what Fahrenheit is.
Oh, I don't have no idea. I have no idea what Celsius is. So we're just going to have to do, it's about right.
It's cold. It's cold.
It wasn't freezing, but it was cold. And so I'm walking down to the pub to meet Freddie from The Ugly Inside. And I am I can't stop smiling. I'm so excited about this. And we go in and we get a beer, we get on the train, and I have no idea what's going on. I'm just lost, and Freddie's just handing me his Oyster card and just saying, just press it, and we're good. And I'm kind of on the train, just looking around, going, I don't know what's happening. I don't have a ticket in my hand yet. We have to meet a guy to get a ticket. So I'm going through security, looking at Freddie. And he's just the whole time, just calm down. calm down. Like, you're fine. Because I'm just so pumped. I'm so amped. We get the ticket. He takes off to the turnstile. I have no, like, I'm looking for somebody to hand the ticket to, and finally, like, somebody just like takes my hand and I put it in the thing, and I walk in and I can hear the Saints fans, and that's when I ran into you. Like, it was time to go to the restroom before, and I'm talking in line, and you said, "Hey, you're that guy from California, right?" I go, "Yes, that's me." And we're like, "All right, cheers," and then that was it. Like, and see you again.
I will never see that man again.
Yeah. I have to say though, you were dressed nicer for a football match than I dressed for work, which is a truly a compliment. Like, you had a nice jacket on. Like, I was just trying not to freeze.
Tom was proper hipster.
Hey,
you're the moustache.
Yeah, I contemplated shaving a mustache today, or like wearing one, but I was like, I don't know if that's gonna be taken the right way, so I didn't do it. But so then, like, I kind of mentioned it earlier, like, you can hear the Saints fans singing from outside the stadium. You can hear when the Saints go marching in, and as I am like approaching,
so Freddie's got you coming in right at the last moment, hasn't he? He's eked out the maximum drinking time before the game.
He's a clever boy, that one.
It wasn't all his fault, but even the guy that sold us the ticket said, like, Freddie, I know you got short legs, but you know, a bunch of curse words that I won't mention, but, like, you know, come on, man, like, we're almost late here. And so, like, as I'm walking in, like, I kind of exit through, there's like a walkway that's over, I guess because it's a track, so you got to walk over the track, right? So, like, I go over that because we're in the lower level, and as soon as you hit like the kind of end of the upper tier, the sound just kind of rushes over you, and I couldn't stop, like just I don't know, I don't even know what the word is. It was done. I couldn't take it all in, and it was just like,
it sounds a bit like a cup final.
Yeah.
Does it? It does sound like that, like Wembley last year.
Like, and maybe it wasn't that, but like for me, like,
that's what I mean for you. That's the feeling you get for that first game is what we got for like last cup for the cup final.
Because I've been to football matches in the United States, and it's normally like, you know, I can talk to you like I'm talking to you right now at the match. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like, and then you watch the football, and it's like, meh. You know, and then and so like I kind of like I have no idea where the seat is. I have no clue. I'm following Freddie, and Freddie keeps walking down and down and down, and we get kind of near our seats, and we get in, and everybody, like, nobody's moving out of the way because everybody's singing, like, everybody's into it, like, and they're breaking the huddle, like, a kind of center circle at this point, like, running their positions, and I'm just like, I cannot believe this is happening. And then as soon as the game starts, it's kind of like, we're screwed. But that whole kind of like, I was struggling to kind of like take it all in. Like, the game is so much faster than it looks on TV. Tadic's corners are so much flatter than they look on TV. Like, it was like all like everything is just amplified so much, and I'm going to struggle to sit at home and watch probably now because it's just not the same.
I love watching football in real life, and it's quite interesting listening to you describing that there, because the first game I ever went to was Bristol Rovers versus Tranmere Rovers in Twerton Park in Bath, which was a terrible game. It was 1-0 and the goal kind of like just scraped over. But I remember being a kid and feeling that excitement, just like even walking to the game, the atmosphere of the fans and just like when you're young and impressionable and like you're hearing kind of these grown men talking and blah, 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 and you're heading for this thing. That's really exciting. And it's great to kind of hear that excitement, even though you're kind of doing this in your 30s for the very first time. I mean, it's, you know, your hair's on the back of the neck kind of stuff.
But I had high hopes for Saturday because I thought it might be like Delhurst Park.
Oh, yeah. How wrong you were.
How wrong I was. But, like, you know, I remember Delhurst Park. I remember as a kid, Delhurst Park would have been on what, like 95 or something? I was been like 13.
Yeah.
And that feeling of like destiny and the players responding to it and rising to the occasion, that's what I really hoped for, was like we would walk away from that game thinking, I was there. You know, like next season when you're away somewhere else, so someone says, where have you been? You go, I was at Milan, I was at Wembley, I was at the London Stadium, I was there, you know, and it was the opposite.
I was really hoping for one of those moments, like, you know, we score the early goal that, or maybe if we even scored like a late winner, like maybe it's tense the whole way, and like that's one where they come over to the corner and they do it, and it's like you got the West Ham fans right here, and we're just down there in it. And like that's what I had a baseball coach like just before I went to college. It was like, I just want you to like imagine all of the things you're going to do that like before they happen, and then it'll happen. And it was like, well, you're wrong because you didn't tell me to imagine being cut. But like and then you know, it just didn't happen. Like it didn't quite go the way. But I have to say, like, just on a positive note, my trip has been overall, like I didn't ever expect to be able to kind of sit here with you and guys and do this. And like the people that were going like, hey, you're that guy from California, like just meeting all of those people.
So you must have met like loads of your podcast guests.
A lot of them, and a lot of them want to meet. And my wife is like, what are you doing? Like we are on vacation.
Come over again. I've got a spare room. Like we'll find room for you. Just come over next time.
Well, I think so. I'll tell her. It stops at an hour. That's what I'll tell her. So like I kind of like thought I can't go by myself because neither of us, or she's been to Guatemala once on a mission trip, but like none of us have ever been out of the country other than that. And so
wow. First time abroad.
I've never been abroad. Like, so my excuse for coming to England was like, hey, we'll go somewhere where we speak the language because none of us speak a different language. Like, we'll go there, we can read the signs. Like, sure, the cars come from the wrong side, but like we'll figure that out. Like, and so
hang on, the cars come from the correct side. In England.
They come from the opposite
guys have got
side.
It wrong.
They come from the opposite. They come from the opposite side. So it's like all of these things. Like I couldn't come by myself without first having brought the family. I think now it's probably a little easier. Like. Maybe once
you got
a year.
The passport now.
Maybe once a year I can do this.
So like if we're in Championship, you get a Wednesday game and a Saturday game generally.
I mean, also if we make the FA Cup final, surely it's your duty to
yeah, that's true.
To come as a Southampton podcaster.
We'll just lose 3-0.
Let's face it, we're not going to make it to the cup final. We've got to get Chelsea first. Interesting what you're saying about the vision thing and your baseball coach. That's exactly what Matthew Letitia said about being.
That was wonderful, wasn't it? That anecdote. That was like a moment.
Shall I not ruin that? If you haven't heard it yet, go back to the last episode where we had a Q&A with Matthew Letitia in Revolution in Southampton. He talked about some wonderful, brilliant things if you're a Saints fan. I love Letitia.
I often, if I meet other Saints fans, and my missus will back me up on this, I have cried about telling people about that moment. I get so emotional about that moment. And when I was in the gym, I was listening to that, and I was like, oh my God, you oh.
Do you start crying in every single time you listen?
If I talk about that moment,
yeah. Do you get it when you listen to the intro of the Saints FC podcast?
A bit. But I remember being in a pub in New Cross and watching Saints and talking to a young Saints fan, and my missus was like, "Are you crying?" I was like, "No, I'm just emotional." I do cry about it, but it brought me out because also it made you realise that as a fan, it felt like destiny, but you didn't realise it was destiny until you heard him say
what he said.
It was, yeah, and so thoroughly listen to it. It's brilliant bit of radio.
Absolutely. Let us know what you think about this episode, what you think about the Letitia episode. saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, at saintsfcpodcast on Twitter. Head over and listen to the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Matthew, how do people do that? Presumably the same way they're listening to this.
Yeah. If you're listening to this one, whatever app that is, just search Delivery. Just make sure you spell it with 2 L's because it's like the Dell and then
Ivory.
It's a good name, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought it was really good. It turns out SEO not so great, but like it's okay.
In terms of searchability.
Yeah, no, but it's okay. Especially because people on smartphones it autocorrects, and then they just get a bunch. If you type in Southampton Delivery, you get like pizza places and Chinese places and things like that. That's not what I want. Like you can't listen to that, but it's okay.
But you can get a nice pizza.
Yeah, you can.
Trade off.
Yeah. So go over, head over and have a listen to Matt's podcast. The latest one was after the West Ham game in the pub. You're all a little bit inebriated. I've not listened to it yet, but I've heard it's quite good.
Yeah.
Quite funny.
So the hope was that one of you two would be there because I wanted to kind of talk about. It's okay. Things happen when things go horribly wrong. The idea was to talk to the guys from the Ugly Inside, which you're on the YouTube channel and things like that. So it was the idea that we would talk and kind of cover from the beginning to now. And because I'm a history teacher, it kind of really interests me. And I wanted to, like what makes them do what they did. And it turned out that the loss was bad. We didn't record till late. We drank a lot, but it's in a pub and it's great. And then we also talked to the guys from the London Saints, which have been around for 40 years.
Great organization.
And so the two guys, and they were literally on the next table over. Yeah. And it was just like Freddie goes, "You're from the London Saints. Come on over here." And then it was just like, "Hi, I'm Matt," and like, "Let's talk." And it was great. So that episode actually is great because it's good for me. I've actually like listened back to it in its entirety because I wanted to just kind of hear like it's nice to hear those things from as someone who doesn't come from this area and didn't grow up with the club, like to kind of know what the situation was when they started and how that's kind of what the relationship with the club is like and all of those things.
Brilliant. That's on the to-do list. Southampton Delivery Podcast, Saints FC Podcast, 2 great podcasts on Southampton Football Club. We won't talk about the other ones because they're not here. So yeah, and I think we got the best ones covered here anyway. So let's leave it at that. Saints FC Podcast at gmail.com, at Saints FC Podcast on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I'm sorry that West Ham United was so awful, but hey, we're going to go to the Emirates and beat them, isn't it?
And then
right?
we're going to win the FA Cup, so what's the big deal?
Yeah. Anyway, so that's cheerio from me.
Good night from me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. And that's all from the California guy.
The pleasure was all ours. You can drop in anytime, Matt.